It was 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, when my family invaded my Chicago penthouse. They used the emergency keys I had foolishly trusted them with, moving through the shadows like debt collectors. My brother Joshua leaned against the granite island, smelling of stale bourbon and fear. My father did not offer a hug. Instead, he dropped a heavy legal document onto the glass coffee table with a thud. My parents hired a lawyer to declare me legally unfit when I refused to give my salary to my brother. The petition for emergency guardianship lay between us like a declaration of war. My mother did not scream or beg for the $65,000 they needed for Joshua's margin call. She simply reached into her designer bag and adjusted her pearls with clinical indifference. "We are doing this for your own good," she whispered, her eyes cold as winter slush. They planned to take control of my assets by morning. The door clicked shut, leaving me alone in the absolute silence of my own fortress. I did not chase them into the hallway. Instead, I walked to the heavy mahogany door and engaged the deadbolt. I then engaged the secondary security lock I had installed 3 months ago, when Joshua first began asking about my bonus structure. My hands were steady as I poured a glass of ice water. The condensation was the only thing sweating in the room. I took a long drink, feeling the cold slide down my throat. Architects, do not panic when a load-bearing wall cracks. The city lights of Chicago blinked outside, indifferent to the structural collapse of my family. I carried my laptop to the dining table and sat down. It was 11:15 p.m., and the courts opened at 9. I had exactly 9 hours and 45 minutes to turn my life into a digital ghost. I began with the credit bureaus, initiating a total security freeze. No one could open a loan in my name without a pen that existed only in my mind. Click, frozen. Next, I targeted the bank accounts. My parents knew my old passwords and the name of my first pet. I logged into my primary checking account and changed the password to a string of 30 random characters. I updated the security questions to data they could never guess. For my mother's maiden name, I entered the serial number of my laptop. For my elementary school, I used the chemical formula for concrete. I initiated a wire transfer for 90% of my liquid assets. I logged into my company payroll portal and removed my direct deposit information. If they managed to freeze my main account tomorrow, my next paycheck would not land in their trap. By midnight, I had vanished from my own financial life. I looked at the guardianship petition again. They wanted to paint me as manic and reckless. I looked at the logs of my activity. It was precise, methodical, and ruthless. This was not mania. This was a hostile takeover defense. The blue light of my screen illuminated a new spreadsheet. I labeled it Family Liabilities and began to type. Joshua's DUI in 2019 cost $12,000. Mom's emergency cruise in 2021 was $8,000. Row after row. The bailouts grew into a staggering list of unreturned investments. The total at the bottom blinked back at me. $214,000 over 7 years. I stared at the sum. I was paying a ransom for my own existence. I thought of the baby elephant, trained to stay near a tiny wooden stake. When it grows powerful enough to rip the stake out, it doesn't. It stays put because it still believes it is weak. My parents had trained me, since I was 6, that my worth was transactional. Good grades earned dinner. Silence earned peace. Money earned a pause in the criticism. I was the grown elephant, terrified of a small stake, writing checks to prove I mattered. My phone began to vibrate at 7 a.m., against the sleek desk surface. It was a persistent, angry buzz. I did not answer. Instead, I watched the notifications stack up like bricks in a wall. Joshua, Karen, and David were calling in shifts. Then the extended family joined the offensive. Aunt Sarah wrote that my mother said I was having a breakdown. Cousin Mike asked if I was okay. They were weaponizing my silence and turning my boundaries into paranoia. I opened a voicemail from my father recorded at 2 in the morning. His voice was thick and slurred by scotch. "You think that money is yours, Kimberly?" he asked. "Who paid for your piano lessons?" "That money is mine. It is a return on my investment. You do not steal from the people who made you." I saved the audio file and backed it up to 3 different cloud servers. To a narcissist, a child is just an asset class. The realization burned away the last lingering hope that they were actually worried. They were just afraid their stock was crashing. I picked up my phone and dialed the only person who had been excommunicated years ago. Aunt Lisa answered on the second ring. "I was wondering when you would call," she said. Her voice was dry as parchment. "Be at my office in an hour. Bring coffee?" Black. I grabbed my laptop and the petition. Lisa's office was a weapons silo located on the 42nd floor. It smelled of ozone, burnt coffee, and billable hours. She did not hug me. She did not offer a platitude. She simply pointed to the leather chair opposite her desk. "Let me see it," she said. I slid the guardianship petition across the mahogany. She laughed when she read the claims of incompetence. Narcissists do not go to court unless they have run out of other options. She pressed a button on her intercom and summoned her team. They did not look like accountants. They looked like hackers in Brooks Brothers suits. "We are not just defending you," Lisa announced. "We are performing a hostile audit. If they want to tell a judge you are a liability, we will open their books." I gave her my parents' social security numbers. On the screens, numbers began to scroll. We were hunting for their deepest, darkest secret. The room hummed with the sound of cooling fans and typing. I sat there drinking the black coffee someone had placed in front of me. It tasted bitter and clean. I watched as Lisa's team pulled the threads of my parents' financial tapestry. On the screens, numbers began to scroll. Credit scores and mortgage liens flashed in rapid succession. "Find me the anomaly," Lisa ordered. "Find me the reason they are so terrified of losing their control over her." It took 6 hours to find the lie. The sun was crossing the sky and dipped behind the skyscrapers, casting long shadows across the conference table. The hum of the servers had become a white noise backdrop to my growing anxiety. I had paced the length of the room 40 times by then. Then, the typing suddenly stopped. One of the associates printed a single document. He did not say a word. He just handed it to Aunt Lisa. She read it in total silence. She did not smile or frown. She just looked up at me. For the first time, the predator's gaze softened into something that looked terrifyingly like pity. "Kimberly," she said. "Sit down." I sat in the leather chair. It felt cold against my back. "Who owns the house in Naperville?" she asked. "My parents," I said. "They bought it in 1998. Lisa shook her head. "They bought it then, but they don't own it." She slid the paper across the mahogany desk. It was a property tax history report. Look at the transfer date. May 12th, 10 years ago. I looked at the date. It was the day my grandmother Eleanor died. The deed was transferred from David and Karen to the Eleanor Trust, Lisa said. Her voice was steady and quiet. "I do not understand," I said. "Dad told me she died without a will. He said everything went to medical debts." "He lied," Lisa said. "There was a will and there was a trust." I just pulled the filing from the county clerk's archives. "Your father did not probate the estate. He suppressed the will and appointed himself the trustee." She leaned forward. "Lauren, the trust documents name a single beneficiary." My heart hammered against my ribs. I knew what she was going to say before she said it. "It is you." The entire room seemed to tilt sideways. The house and the remaining portfolio were all left to me. "Your father was supposed to transfer the title to your name when you turned 25, Lisa explained. "He didn't. He buried the paperwork instead. He has been living in your house rent, free for 4 years past the legal deadline." The pieces slammed into place with the force of a wrecking ball. The panic in their eyes made sense now. The guardianship petition was a desperate smokescreen. They are not trying to declare you incompetent, because they think you are crazy, Lisa said. Her voice was hard as a diamond. They are doing it because if you are legally incapacitated, your father remains the trustee indefinitely. He keeps the house in the secret. I stood up and walked to the window. I looked at the city I had built while believing I was a burden. In reality, they were the squatters. Let's go to court. The hearing took place in courtroom 402 of the Daily Center. It was a windowless box of beige, tile that smelled of floor wax and anxiety. My parents sat on the left, dressed as heartbroken saviors. My mother wore a soft blue cardigan designed to evoke sympathy. Joshua sat beside her looking bored, checking his watch as if he had a tea time to catch. Their lawyer, Mr. Sterling, smoothed his expensive silk tie. He looked ready to win. Sterling began his opening statement with a practiced frown. He painted a tragic picture of a daughter's decline. He used words like unhinged, man-expending, and paranoid delusions. He told the judge that my sudden freezing of assets was proof of a total break from reality. I sat with my hands folded on the table. My spine was pressed against the hard wood of the chair. I did not flinch. I watched them perform their scripted lies. Aunt Lisa leaned in close to me. Her voice was a low steel whisper that cut through Sterling's drone. "Look at them, Kimberly," she said. "If we had walked in here today empty-handed, you would be in a facility by Friday. They would have you on sedatives to keep you compliant. Joshua would be driving your car to the casino by Monday." The image hit me with the force of a physical blow. They wanted to erase me. That fear did not make me tremble. It solidified my resolve. It turned my blood into liquid nitrogen. Sterling finished his speech and looked smug. He thought the case was closed. "Miss Vance," the judge said, looking at Aunt Lisa, "do you have a response regarding your client's mental state?" Lisa stood up slowly. She did not pick up my medical records. Instead, she grabbed the original deed. "We are not here to discuss her mind," Lisa said. "Your Honor, we are here to discuss the petitioner's criminal intent," Lisa announced. Her voice projected to the back of the room. "We move to dismiss this petition on the grounds of fraud." The judge frowned as Lisa walked toward the bench. She explained that the parents were not concerned guardians. In reality, they were squatters who had been illegally occupying my property for 10 years. She placed the documents on the judge's bench with a sharp snap. The silence in the courtroom was sudden and absolute. It was the sound of all the oxygen leaving the room. "Exhibit A is the last will of Eleanor Vance, suppressed by David Vance," Lisa said. "Exhibit B is the deed to the property held in trust. The sole beneficiary is my client. The petitioners have been concealing this asset to live rent-free." I watched the judge read the papers. I saw his eyebrows knit together. His face hardened. The judge looked up from the papers and stared at my father. My parents' faces turned the color of old ash. The smugness vanished from Joshua's face. "Mr. Sterling," the judge said, his voice dangerously quiet, "are your clients aware that they are residing in the respondent's property without a lease?" Sterling stammered and looked at my parents. He saw the guilt written in their panic. He closed his briefcase. "I was not informed of this," he said. "The petition for guardianship is dismissed with prejudice," the judge barked. He banged the gavel, and the sound echoed like a gunshot in the sterile room. "Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the state's attorney for an immediate investigation into trust fraud and perjury. Get out of my courtroom." My mother started to wail. A real sound of terror this time. David slumped in his chair, defeated. Joshua looked at me with wide, shocked eyes. I didn't look back. I walked out of the courtroom into the cool hallway. The air felt thin and clean. The war was over, and the occupation of my life was finally ending. I didn't go out for champagne or call friends to celebrate. Instead, I drove straight to Naperville. The house loomed at the end of the cul-de-sac, a sprawling monument to their long deception. It looked different to me now. It was no longer a home. It was a crime scene. I walked up the driveway with a manila envelope in my hand. I didn't ring the doorbell. I didn't need to because I owned the door. My father opened it before I could reach the handle. He looked 20 years older than he had that morning. He smelled of scotch and sudden defeat. "Kimberly," he started, his voice cracking with a lie. "We were just trying to protect the asset for you." I did not let him finish. I handed him the envelope. "This is your official notice to vacate," I said. My voice was calm and final. "You have 30 days. The locks will be changed on November 1st at noon. If anything is missing, from a light fixture to a single spoon, I will press charges for theft. The sheriff already has a copy of the inventory list." My mother stood in the hallway weeping. Joshua was behind her, clutching a stuffed duffel bag like a thief. "And you," I said, looking at my brother. "You are not a tenant, and you have no lease. You are a guest who has overstayed his welcome by a decade. You do not get 30 days to leave. You have 30 minutes to get out." "Where am I supposed to go?" he whined. The old entitlement still clung to him like a bad cologne. "I don't know," I replied. "Maybe you can bet on it." I turned away. I didn't look in the rearview mirror as I drove back to the city. I didn't feel sad or angry. I felt the specific weightless sensation of a structure that has finally been stripped of its dead weight. Back in my penthouse, the wind off Lake Michigan had died down. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop one last time. I pulled up the spreadsheet. Family liabilities, $214,000. I looked at the cold number. For years, that number had been a chain. It was the proof of my love and the metric of my exploitation. I highlighted the rows. I didn't try to collect the debt or send an invoice. I simply hit the delete key. The screen went blank. It wasn't forgiveness. It was a write-off. It was a bad debt cleared, so the company could finally be profitable. I was the architect. The blueprint was finally mine.